The ring was gone. My grandmother's sapphire, the one she pressed into my hand before she passed, whispering it was my legacy, vanished from its velvet box on my dresser. My heart plummeted as I tore through my bedroom, desperation clawing at me like a living thing. I, Emily Harper, 35 and single, had built a quiet life in the house our parents left me. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. Every creaky floorboard, every chipped teacup in the cupboard. The ring was my last tether to Grandma, the woman who raised me after Mom and Dad died in that car crash when I was 10. She'd been my anchor, and that ring, with its deep blue stone catching the light like a tiny ocean, was her final gift. I'd worn it only once, afraid to damage its delicate gold band, and kept it locked away. Or so I thought. My brother, Jake, 38, and his wife, Sarah, 32, had moved in 6 months ago. Just until we get back on our feet, Jake had said, his voice gruff with pride. I'd agreed, because he was family, because the house was big enough, because I couldn't say no to the only person who'd shared my grief all those years ago. But Sarah? She was different. Her smiles were too sharp, her eyes always scanning, like she was pricing everything in my home. I'd caught her once, holding Grandma's silver candlesticks, her fingers lingering too long. I should have known then. I stormed downstairs, the empty velvet box clutched in my hand. Jake was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone, while Sarah chopped vegetables in the kitchen, her movements too precise, too calm. Sarah, I said, my voice trembling with fury, where's my ring? She didn't even flinch. What ring? She asked, her tone light, like we were discussing the weather. Jake looked up, his brow furrowing. What's this about? Grandma's sapphire ring. It's gone. I know you've been in my room, Sarah. My words hung in the air, sharp and accusing. Sarah's knife paused mid-chop, and for a split second, her eyes flickered with something, guilt? Fear? But then she laughed, a sound that grated like broken glass. You're accusing me of stealing? That's rich, Emily. Maybe you misplaced it. You're always so scattered. Her voice dripped with condescension, and I felt my blood boil. Jake stood, his broad frame filling the space between us. Calm down. You can't just throw accusations around. Sarah's not a thief. His tone was firm, but there was a warning in it, a don't-push-me edge that made my stomach twist. Jake had always been protective, but this felt different. He was choosing her side without even asking. I didn't misplace it, I snapped. It was in my room, in its box, and now it's gone. Sarah's the only one who's been up there. I held up the empty box, my hands shaking. Sarah rolled her eyes, tossing her blonde hair over her shoulder. Maybe you should check your own habits before pointing fingers, she said, resuming her chopping. I don't need your old jewelry. The dismissal stung, but it was Jake's next words that cut deeper. Drop it, Emily, or we're going to have a problem. His eyes, the same hazel as mine, were cold, unfamiliar. My brother, my only family, was threatening me in my own home. Over her. I retreated to my room, the weight of betrayal settling in my chest. But as I sat on my bed, staring at the empty box, a memory sparked. The house. Our parents' will. Jake had never read the fine print, never cared about the legal details. I pulled out the old file from my nightstand, my fingers brushing the faded paper. There it was, in black and white. The house was mine. Not ours. Mine. And with it, a power I hadn't realized I held. I wasn't going to let this go. Not the ring, not the betrayal. Sarah had taken something precious, and Jake had chosen her over me. They didn't know it yet, but they'd just started a war they couldn't win. The next morning, I woke with a fire in my gut. The sting of Jake's threat and Sarah's smug denial fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for a ring anymore. This was about respect, about my home, about the family we were supposed to be. I needed proof, and I needed a plan. I started with the obvious, my bedroom. If Sarah had taken the ring, she might have left a trace. I searched every inch, under the bed, behind the dresser, even inside the vents. Nothing. But as I stood in the middle of the room, my eyes landed on the small security camera I'd installed last year after a neighborhood break-in. It was tucked in the corner, barely noticeable, and it recorded to a cloud server. My heart raced. Why hadn't I thought of it sooner? I pulled up the footage on my laptop, my hands trembling as I scrubbed through the last few days. There it was, time-stamped 2 nights ago. Sarah, slipping into my room at 1 a.m. She moved like a shadow, her face illuminated by the moonlight as she opened my dresser, lifted the velvet box, and pocketed the ring. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. My chest tightened with a mix of triumph and rage. I had her. But proof wasn't enough. I needed to understand why. Why the ring? Why now? I saved the footage and decided to confront Sarah alone. Jake was at work, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I found her in the guest room, folding laundry with that same calculated calm. "Sarah," I said, standing in the doorway, "I saw you. On camera. Taking my ring." Her hands froze, mid-fold, but she didn't look up. For a moment, the silence was deafening. Then she sighed, setting the shirt down with deliberate care. "You're paranoid, Emily. I didn't take anything." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her, darting to the side, avoiding mine. "I have proof," I said, holding up my phone with a still from the footage. Her face paled, just for a second, before she recovered, crossing her arms. "So what? You going to call the cops on me? Over a ring?" Her tone was defiant, but there was a crack in it, a hint of fear. I stepped closer, my voice low. "Why, Sarah? Why take it? It's not even valuable to anyone but me." She hesitated, and in that pause, I saw something I hadn't expected: shame. She looked away, her jaw tight. "It's not about the ring," she muttered. "It's about you. Always you. Jake talks about you like you're the saint of this family, like I'm just the outsider. I wanted something of yours, something that mattered." Her words hit like a punch. This wasn't just theft, it was personal. She resented me, my place in Jake's life, my home. But before I could respond, she straightened, her defiance returning. "You can't prove I still have it. And Jake won't believe you over me." She was wrong about that. Or so I thought. That evening, I showed Jake the footage. His face darkened as he watched, but when it ended, he didn't apologize. He didn't even look at me. "She made a mistake," he said, his voice flat. "She'll give it back. Let's move on." "Move on?" I echoed, incredulous. "She stole from me, Jake. And you threatened me to protect her." He rubbed his temples, like I was the one exhausting him. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Em. It's just a ring." His dismissal was a blade, cutting through years of trust. I realized then that Jake wasn't just blind to Sarah's flaws. He was complicit, and I wasn't going to let them walk over me. I went to bed that night with the will in my hand, the words sole ownership burning in my mind. They thought they could take from me, threaten me, in my own home. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The house felt like a battlefield now, every creak and whisper charged with tension. I couldn't look at Jake without seeing his betrayal, couldn't pass Sarah without feeling her resentment. But I had the footage, the will, and a growing resolve. This was my home, and I was done being the pushover. I called my lawyer, Karen, a no-nonsense woman who'd handled our parents' estate. Over coffee at a diner, I laid out everything. The ring, the footage, Jake's threat. Karen leaned back, her sharp eyes studying me. "You've got leverage, Emily. The house is legally yours. If you want them out, you can make it happen." Out. The word felt heavy. Kicking Jake out meant severing the last tie to my family. But what kind of family threatens you? Steals from you? I nodded slowly. "What do I need to do?" Karen outlined my options. Serve an eviction notice, file a police report for the theft, or negotiate a resolution. The police report tempted me. Sarah deserved consequences, but I wasn't ready to burn every bridge. Not yet. "Start with a formal demand for the ring," Karen advised. "If they push back, we escalate." Back home, I drafted a letter, my hands steady despite the storm in my chest. I demanded the ring's return within 48 hours, citing the footage and my legal rights to the property. I slipped it under their bedroom door, my heart pounding. This was it, no going back. The next day, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. Her face was a mask of fury, the letter crumpled in her hand. "You're threatening us? Over a stupid ring," she hissed. "You think you can kick us out?" "It's my house," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "And you stole from me. Return the ring, or I go to the police." Her eyes widened. but she didn't back down. "You'll regret this," she spat, storming off. Jake was worse. He found me later, his face red with anger. "You're taking this too far, Emily. You're tearing this family apart." "Me?" I shot back. "You chose her over me. You threatened me in my own home." He opened his mouth, then closed it, his silence louder than any words. For the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. That night, I heard them arguing through the walls, Sarah's voice shrill, Jake's low and heated. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone told me everything. They were cracking. I should have felt victorious, but all I felt was grief. This wasn't the family I dreamed of. The 48 hours passed. No ring. I called Karen and gave her the green light. The next morning, a process server delivered the eviction notice. Sarah's scream echoed through the house when she read it. Jake stormed into my room, the paper in his hand. "You're evicting us? Are you serious?" "You left me no choice," I said, meeting his gaze. "You both did this." He stared at me, his anger giving way to something else, regret, maybe, but it was too late. The line had been drawn. As they packed, I found the ring. It was tucked in Sarah's jewelry box, hidden under a pile of cheap necklaces. I held it up, the sapphire glinting in the light, and felt a hollow victory. I had my legacy back, but at what cost? Jake wouldn't look at me as they loaded their car. Sarah's parting words were venomous. "You'll be alone forever, Emily." Maybe she was right. But as their car pulled away, I stood in the doorway of my house, my home, and felt the weight of it settle around me. I wasn't done fighting for what was mine. The house was too quiet without them. The absence of Jake's booming laugh, Sarah's sharp footsteps, left an ache I hadn't expected. I'd won, hadn't I? The ring was back on my dresser, the eviction notice served, the house undeniably mine. So why did victory taste like ash? I spent days cleaning, scrubbing away every trace of their presence. But no amount of lemon-scented cleaner could erase the memories. Jake teaching me to ride a bike in the backyard, Sarah's rare moments of kindness, like when she'd made me soup when I was sick. I hated how much I missed them, even after everything. Then the letter came. Handwritten, Jake's messy scrawl. I'm sorry. I didn't know how far things had gone. Sarah's gone too far, and I let her. Can we talk?" My heart twisted. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and mine was shattered. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Jake looked older, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "She pawned the ring," he admitted, staring at his coffee. I didn't know until after. "She needed money, said it was for us," but he trailed off, shame written across his face. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you choose me?" He flinched, like I'd struck him. "I thought I was protecting her. Protecting us. I was wrong." His words were raw, and for the first time, I saw the brother I used to know. But apologies couldn't undo the eviction, the threats, the theft. I told him I needed time. Back home, I dug deeper. The pawnshop receipt was in Sarah's email, which she'd left logged in on my old laptop. She'd sold the ring for $500, a fraction of its worth to me. I tracked it down, paid double to get it back, and held it in my palm, the sapphire cold against my skin. It wasn't just a ring. It was Grandma's love, my history, my strength. I started therapy, something I'd avoided for years. The sessions were hard, peeling back layers of grief and guilt. I'd spent so long being the good sister, the one who held the family together, that I'd forgotten how to stand up for myself. But I was learning. Jake called again, asking to come back. Just him, not Sarah. They'd split, he said, her betrayal too much even for him. I wanted to say yes, to rebuild what we'd lost. But the house, my sanctuary, deserved better. I deserved better. "No," I told him, my voice steady. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." The words hurt, but they were true. I hung up, tears streaming down my face, and slipped the ring onto my finger. For the first time, it felt like it belonged there. The house was mine, but so was my future. I wasn't defined by Jake's choices or Sarah's greed. I was Emily Harper, and I was enough. Months passed, and the house began to feel like home again. I painted the walls a soft blue, hung new curtains, planted roses in the garden. Each change was a step toward reclaiming my space, my life. But the ring stayed on my finger, a reminder of what I'd fought for and what I'd lost. Jake texted occasionally, small updates about his job, his new apartment. I responded politely, but the distance between us remained. Sarah was a ghost, no contact since the eviction. I heard through a mutual friend she'd moved across state lines, chasing some new scheme. I didn't care enough to confirm. Then came the lawsuit. A thick envelope arrived, stamped with a lawyer's seal. Sarah was suing me, claiming I'd wrongfully evicted them and caused her emotional distress. The audacity floored me. Karen laughed when I showed her. "She's got no case," she said. "The house is yours, and we've got the footage." This is desperation. Still, the legal battle loomed, draining my savings and my energy. I spent nights poring over documents, reliving the betrayal with every page. Karen was confident, but doubt gnawed at me. What if Sarah twisted the truth? What if Jake sided with her again? The hearing was a blur of legalese and cold stares. Sarah sat across the courtroom, her face a mask of indignation. Jake wasn't there. I hadn't expected him to be. My lawyer presented the footage, the will, the pawnshop receipt. Sarah's lawyer argued she'd been coerced, that I'd manipulated the situation. But the judge wasn't swayed. "Ms. Harper's property rights are clear," he said, his voice final. Case dismissed. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. Sarah's eyes met mine as she left the courtroom, and the hatred there chilled me. This wasn't over for her. I knew it in my bones. That night, I sat in the living room, the ring catching the lamplight. I thought of Grandma, her strength, her love. She'd faced worse than this and never backed down. I wouldn't either. I called a security company, upgraded the cameras, changed the locks. If Sarah came back, I'd be ready. But the real fight was inside me. I'd spent so long defining myself through family, through Jake, through our shared grief, that I'd forgotten who I was without them. Therapy helped, but so did the small victories, a new job, a painting class, a friend who didn't know my past. I was building a life, piece by piece, and it was mine. Jake sent a letter, longer this time. He was in therapy too, working through his mistakes. He didn't ask to come back, just to be my brother again, someday. I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. Maybe one day, I'd be ready. Maybe. A year later, the house was transformed. The garden bloomed with roses, the kitchen smelled of fresh bread, and laughter filled the rooms again. Not Jake's, but mine, shared with new friends. I joined a book club, started volunteering at a local shelter. Life felt full, not of drama, but of purpose. The ring never left my finger. It wasn't just a keepsake anymore. It was a symbol of my resilience. I'd faced betrayal, fought for my home, and come out stronger. But the past wasn't done with me yet. One evening, a knock at the door startled me. It was Jake, alone, holding a small box. "I found this," he said, his voice soft. "It's not the ring, but it's something." Inside was a locket, one of Grandma's I hadn't seen in years. Sarah had it, he admitted. I didn't know until I was cleaning out her stuff. I took the locket, my throat tight. "Why are you here, Jake?" He looked down, his hands in his pockets. "I miss you, Em. I know I screwed up. I let Sarah come between us, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I want to try again." His eyes were wet, and for the first time, I saw the boy who'd held my hand at our parents' funeral. I invited him in, but not fully. We sat in the living room, the space between us heavy with unspoken words. He told me about his life, divorced now, starting over. I told him about mine, the lawsuit, the new me. We didn't hug, didn't promise anything, but it was a start. Sarah's name came up only once. She'd tried contacting him, begging for money. He'd cut her off. "She's not my problem anymore," he said, and I believed him. But I didn't trust him, not yet. That night, I opened the locket. Inside was a photo of me and Jake as kids, smiling under Grandma's oak tree. I cried, not for what we'd lost, but for what we might still have. Family wasn't perfect, but it was worth fighting for, in my own time, on my own terms. I slipped the locket onto a chain, wore it next to the ring. 2 pieces of my past, 2 pieces of my strength. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of me. 2 years after the eviction, I stood in the backyard, the roses in full bloom. The house was more than a building now. It was a testament to my survival. I'd faced theft, betrayal, and a lawsuit, and I'd come out whole. The ring sparkled on my finger, the locket rested against my heart. I was Emily Harper, and I was enough. Jake and I were rebuilding, slowly. We met for coffee once a month, talked about small things, his new job, my book club. Trust was a work in progress, but we were trying. Sarah was a distant memory, her name rarely mentioned. I'd heard she'd moved again, chasing another fresh start. I wished her no harm, but I wished her gone. The lawsuit had been my final battle, but it taught me something. Strength wasn't just about winning. It was about knowing your worth, even when others tried to take it from you. I'd spent so long being the good sister, the one who forgave, who accommodated. No more. I forgave Jake, but I didn't forget. I loved him, but I loved myself more. One evening, I hosted a dinner for my book club. Laughter filled the house, wine glasses clinked, and for the first time, I felt truly at peace. The ring caught the light as I passed a plate, and a friend noticed. "That's beautiful," she said. "What's its story?" I smiled, touching the sapphire. "It's my grandmother's. It's about family and fighting for what matters." I didn't tell the whole story. Some wounds were private, but I felt Grandma's presence in that moment, her strength in mine. Later, alone, I walked through the house, touching the walls, the furniture, the memories. This was my home, my legacy. Jake had his own path now, and I had mine. The ring, the locket, the house, they were mine, not because of a will, but because I'd earned them. As I stood at the window, watching the sunset paint the sky gold, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I had myself, my strength, my story. And that was more than enough.